Mr. Sir, I won't be here tomorrow either.
Oh yeah.
Me neither.
Okay.
We got a track.
We don't have it tomorrow.
You can come in before school if you want. SWBA, students will be able to define and identify rectangles, rhombi, and squares, and find measures, which is section 6.4.
So do we need our notes to do?
No, it's honestly not important enough right now.
We need our notes to do.
Right now, we just need our note cards and transition to our notes after that. Yes, Sophia.
Okay, so how come it's rhombi instead of rhombuses?
It can actually be either, but I prefer rhombi because I think it's more fun.
Okay.
Okay, so our first note card we had was a parallelogram note card. We went through this one together already.
Indeed, we did.
So we're not going to go over it again much right now, except we're going to add on that definition and the diagonal. Okay, so we have the definition of the diagonal, so I'm going to add on here. Okay, the parallelogram. Let's see what's written down after we forget.
Thank you.
So, so we need the definition. Our definition for a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides parallel. Now, this might be a lot to write in this space. So one thing you can do is you can shorten down quadrilateral to quad.
Quad.
Width, you can make W and a slash. That's kind of a universal abbreviation for width. Opposite, you can make OPP. Parallel, you can do the two slashes. So there's all sorts of ways to shorten this one down to make it so you can fit that all out one line. What was your question? Okay.
Dude, let's get this right, baby.
My handwriting's gonna be really
I
good.
still don't have enough.
Oh, yeah. You want same thing?
Yeah, so that's our definition for it. And this isn't a new definition. Please do not throw that next time. Please walk it over.
I need
Our
I need it.
definition is at the bottom.
Yes, I know. Okay. Yeah, I know your definition at the bottom here. It's okay. It's on the bottom of mine too. Alright. So then the other thing we need on this. There, no.
I need another note card on the last
What is
one.
our
I have
diagonal?
one.
We don't have diagonal yet, Ken.
I have some if you need it, but that's okay.
Then never mind.
Thank you.
You can
Good
proceed.
job.
Oh, shoot.
You even know what they said?
Alright, Mr. Dasher, please come to the office. Mr. Dasher.
Who's that?
I'm assuming it's
The
some.
sweetest diagonal
Okay, diagonals. What we know for diagonals is the diagonals bisect each other. So fast forward all the way to the diagonals at the end. The diagonals bisect each other. So you can just write bisect each other because you already wrote the word diagonals. So if you want to write, just write
One card
bisect
done.
each other. Yeah, one card is done.
Wait,
So after you write that, I'll just give it a little bit of time here. Those that missed, I'll have you catch us up later and I'll talk about how after we're done, okay? So those that missed and don't have any of this, I'll talk about how to get all of this later as well, okay?
Let's go flip to the rectangle.
I can just take a picture.
So,
Not for real.
bisect each other. 3 words. 3 words. Bisect each other.
Technically, it's one word and one compound word.
Each other is 2 words.
What?
I've been lying to my entire life.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay.
I'm not-
So onto our rectangle note card. Okay. Rectangle note card. We're gonna go through these next 3: the rectangle, the rectangle, the rhombus, and the square. We're gonna go through those a little bit slower because we haven't already done the whole card yet. We're gonna make sure we're all on the same page. So first of all, our definition. We haven't talked about this yet. This is new. A rectangle note card. Definition is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. Way to shorten this down. Parallelogram. We can draw that mini parallelogram. Or you can make the number. Angles. You can make the symbol with apostrophe s.
Should I write this down?
Yes. Yeah. This is on a new note card. Yep. Rectangles. And you'll probably have a hard time getting through all of it today. That's okay. Because like I said, I'll give you the way to get caught up later. Okay. So it's a parallelogram with 4 right angles. So if you have trouble writing all that in one line, shorten it down. Or just shorten it down because you don't want to write the whole thing. That's what I did. Yes, Sophia.
Wait, if it has 4 right angles, wouldn't that be a square?
It could be,
Oh, rectangle.
but specifically it's a rectangle. Hey, Randall, whatever you just do,
Click on the little.
put something on the outside.
A flag with 4 right angles.
That looks like a flag.
Is that better now?
Well, I still,
It looks like a computer now.
my brain just wouldn't be like, see that as parallel.
Well, hopefully it will. Okay. So, what else is it?
Got it.
It's a parallelogram. You should have that. It's a parallelogram.
I got that.
Make sure, hopefully you guys have this already, but it's a parallelogram.
Parallelogram or ogram?
Oh, bro.
Parallelogram.
Bro.
No, I have to know how to spell it.
Turns
It's
around.
Spell it.
right there.
Crazy. Bro.
Relationships of size. What did you guys notice about the lengths of a rectangle? What was something you guys noticed about the lengths of a rectangle? Kennedy,
Both pairs opposite sides are congruent, I think.
I agree with that. Both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Very good. Everybody should have that or something similar. If you have something different and you're wondering, Mr. Costle, is this okay? Do I need to erase this? Please ask. William.
I just put congruent.
Double.
No,
Equal
because that
sign.
could mean that all the sides are congruent. It could mean just two sides are congruent. But we want both pairs of opposite sides congruent. We just want to be specific with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we get into other shapes, we'll notice why that is. Okay? Shh, stop. Slide combos. Thank you. Yeah, we just want to be very specific in this. Like I said, when we get into other shapes, we'll really see why that is. Okay, what do you notice about the slopes? Kennedy?
Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel.
Very good. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel.
I got the degrees.
And were both the lengths and the slopes, both pairs of opposite sides being congruent, both pairs of opposite sides being parallel, those were things that we knew from it being a parallelogram. So because it's also a parallelogram, those are automatically true. Anything we know about a parallelogram is going to be true about a rectangle. But we have some additional things we'll learn. And Nathan, what's one of those with degrees?
90 degrees, right?
What about 90 degrees?
The angles are 90 degrees.
Yeah, all four angles are 90 degrees. So all angles are 90 degrees, or you can put congruent as well. So all angles are 90 degrees. And so instead of just being any two consecutive angles are supplementary, any two consecutive angles are supplementary, just any angles are supplementary. So I would put actually, I meant to change that, excuse me, to any two.
For what?
So we had, we could have two things for this. For the degrees, we have two things on parallelogram. We have two things here. So the first one is all angles are 90 degrees / congruent, either one or both. And then any two angles are supplementary, which you can shorten down to SUPP. Sup? No. Like
It's
I
up
did.
to you.
Okay, sorry, Grace. You don't alter the zoom. Gosh darn it.
I just learned everybody.
One boy.
Except for me too.
Nice one.
Oh,
I
she
was
wants it.
there.
I was at the portion.
I was there. I was actually.
Wait, what?
So we don't have to say.
I didn't do that.
Crazy.
So we replace the all pairs of consecutive.
Oh, that's a pressure.
So, what you looking at over there, Mr.
I'll tell you
Carson?
later.
After I say she even asked what?
She's been crazy today.
She's been kind of psycho. She hasn't seen Brock
She
all
has
day.
mood changes. Yes, I have.
Alright. So the diagonals. So we know that the diagonals bisect each other. Here's the way you can write this, guys. Before you start writing everything, the first one you can just write just the bisect each other, just like you did on parallelogram. You write the whole thing.
Wait, is this supposed to be in the back of the parallelogram sign?
I did, but you can put it on your on a different card, so it doesn't have to be in the same order. But mine is in that order. So you just put bisect each other as a first dash, and then a second dash. You can put congruent to each other, or you just put even just a symbol,
Congruent is just
and that could be honestly your second bullet point right there.
Got it.
So if you just want that to be your second bullet point, that's okay. it's just saying that the diagonals, they should
Yeah,
be,
we don't
yeah.
have room for, yeah.
I saw another line.
We didn't leave a space.
What are you guys talking about? I did mine so beautiful and perfect.
What do you see, Nathan?
Nothing's perfect there. Yeah,
Actually,
I know. I write so
It's okay.
I write so big. This is my first time ever writing small. Let's do a rhombus.
I don't believe in small writing.
Let's do a rhombus.
So, because a rectangle is a parallelogram, because it's a parallelogram, everything we knew about the parallelogram, we know about a rectangle. But we also know more specific things as well. So like here, both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, diagonals bisect each other. That we all knew because of the parallelogram. Any parallelogram that's true for it, and this is one of those. But because it's a rectangle, we also know that all angles are 90 degrees and the diagonals are congruent to each other, which wasn't necessarily true in a parallelogram. Questions on this note card? Okay, let's go to that rhombus.
Rhombus.
Okay, so rhombus note card. Look at the first definition. It's a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. Once again, shorten down 4. 4
We get you the
congruent
sign.
symbol.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just redo that. That was a botch.
Can we just write parallelogram?
It has to have 4 congruent sides. That's a very important part of the definition. Yep. Because it's not just a parallelogram. Now, what else is it? That's where parallelogram is, Nick. So this is definition. What did we notice? What else was it? Who can tell me what else this was? You guys pop up. What else was it? Okay, but what popped up with it? Who was there? Yeah. Okay, do we see anything else that is based on our definition?
Where?
It's a parallelogram. It says that in the definition, right? So what else is it? Oh, well, it's probably a parallelogram too. Okay. What else is it? It should be a parallelogram. What did we notice about the lengths of this? What do you know about the lengths of this? Okay, do we know any more specifically? What's our definition say? All 4 are congruent. So more specific than opposite sides. We can say all 4 sides are congruent. We can get very specific with that one and say, oh, boom, they're all congruent. Awesome. Don't have to worry about opposite sides, they're all congruent.
Slopes.
Now what do we notice about the opposite sides based upon the slopes? Is it something? Are all 4 sides parallel? Okay,
Because they can't be parallel. All 4 sides can't be parallel because they will intersect each other.
right?
So
They can't be parallel if they're like, because if all 4 sides are parallel, it'd be like that. That's not a shape.
opposite sides are parallel.
Yeah, very good. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. So same thing as the parallelogram. Okay, what do we know about the angles? Not necessarily. So this one is just going to be like our parallelogram. Both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. And then additionally, we know all consecutive any pairs of consecutive angles are supplementary.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can't write all that.
Okay. Well, easy to shorten it down. Remember, the first one is you can put both pairs of, you can say op angles. You can make the symbol congruent. Make this symbol. And that's all on one line. Second line should be then, you can put, instead of all pairs of, you can write any 2. Consecutive, you can make CONS. Angles, once again, symbol, apostrophe S, and something where you just do SUPP. So that shortens that down a whole lot. Just using some abbreviations instead.
Maybe some
That's
text.
one of the main things I've learned in this year is how to abbreviate.
Yeah, good. Well, that's a good tool to be able to like take notes better. Because especially when you get into high level courses or if you go to college, a lot of those courses, learning how to take your own notes is really helpful. A lot of times you won't have guided notes.
You still have your notes?
So, for some of my classes.
Mr. Carlson.
Did we go back on
with
for
the
us?
fire.
What was that?
Did you ever go back on them for us?
He was in like Trigonometry.
Still good song. Okay, this is on the video.
I was gonna say like a weird.
Trigonometry. Trigonometry is what you're doing.
Those little
So, no, no, I haven't looked back on them recently, just because I don't teach the same classes I took right now. I took those classes in high school. Okay, so for diagonals, we know a few things, okay? So hold on a second, I'm gonna talk about this one. First of all, they're perpendicular and bisect each other. So instead of just being bisecting each other, they're also perpendicular. What's our symbol for perpendicular? Like an upside down T, right? So you could write that instead of perpendicular.
Are perpendicular.
And bisect.
And they bisect each other. For and, you can do this little like and symbol, like you can do the actual and symbol, like the one I do. There's like a plus sign, but I make a loop in it to make it different than my plus signs. And then the other thing we need to know is that each diagonal bisects a pair of opposite angles. Diagonals bisect a pair of opposite angles. Once again, we can abbreviate this stuff, make that a little easier on us.
Working?
It's okay.
Maybe change colors.
You can't change color.
Oh no.
Lick it or spit into like the view.
Just
Yeah,
lick it.
licking the penthouse.
Lick it. Yeah. It gets it back up.
Yep.
Not gonna make that.
See, like, it's only the note card though, 'cause it works perfectly fine on here. Are we gonna need to know all this for the test? If you actually say yes, I might actually never come back to this.
Can we all just drop out?
Yeah, boys. Okay, let's do a square now.
My mom will legit throw me away.
I'll drop out and play baseball,
What are you talking about? I already live in the trash can.
I did go this weekend.
That's not a very nice thing, by the way.
My what?
You said you live in the trash can?
No, I said no.
Wow.
I said I already live in these trash.
Oh.
I live in my.
I'll just talk to some trash can brother real quick.
I live.
It's okay. Apparently my
What
brother was
trash
talking
is
about
it?
my grandpa in one of the classes.
Yeah.
And so then Josie and Riley told my
Yeah.
grandpa I was a track meet, and then yesterday my grandpa told my brother about it.
Yeah.
And then he goes,
That's a big whoopsie.
That's the part he took away.
yeah.
Alright. So going on to a square.
No.
Where's this,
He's working on finishing his ACT testing.
darn it.
Wait, are you supposed to do it in an amount of time?
Yeah, but some people get accommodations to have extra time, just like we have accommodations for extra time on like standard on our normal test too.
Why do they
Some
get
people have accommodations for that.
Why do they like?
If we weren't there on when we did like the clubs or whatever, and we did like the math practice thing, what one of them making that up?
You
People are
don't.
supposed to be pulling you in during other times. Like I've been pulling some people in during my advisory to like work on that. And so, right.
I dropped it.
What's
I mean, we have a big list with all the names on it, so like it's not like some secret. We
Whoa.
know who it is.
I dropped down 20 points.
That's not
Were
good.
you supposed to get on?
I went up.
Five
You're
grand.
supposed to get it. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
You good now?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Going on a square.
Oh, you gotta
Square
do
note
some
card.
stuff.
The last one we're gonna do today.
Cody,
Okay.
yes.
Square note card. Definition: a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So it kind of combines those other two that we just had, the rectangle and the rhombus.
How do you shorten
Once
them?
again, parallelogram. How could you shorten down parallelogram?
The little 2 lines and 2 lines.
The
Yeah.
mini parallelogram. How could you shorten down width? W and a slash. 4, you can make the number 4 congruent the symbol. Once Once again, 4, you can do the number. Angles, you can do the angle symbol, apostrophe S. So there's plenty of ways to shorten this down.
Dude, you just gotta think text.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Exercise.
Delete it all.
No, but
It's like some sort of savage. Like you just have to like do all that work.
No, if my parents text me, I just don't abbreviate anything. I just text it out.
Smart.
I never abbreviate things.
My
You
mom.
see, dude,
Unless
that's
they say like
that's a
I
lie.
know
That's
or
a
I
lie.
don't know.
That's a lie. I'm calling you out right now.
I don't.
Yeah, I do like I know and then right now.
I hate when people say good night as GN.
Me
Like,
Yeah.
too. That is the most
Oh.
annoying thing in the
K
world.
drive K period. Oh.
Okay, dude, chickens before.
My dad does that to me all the time. My dad is the worst at doing K. Like
my
I was
mom-
like sending like a lot. It's like
you ever seen those
K.
videos where someone like
That's what I know
You
when
said
I
like
do
you
a bad
can't paragraph
paragraph.
and it's not
no,
like
someone
one word.
tries
I'm
to
Oof.
I took all that time.
What else
and-
is it? It's a parallelogram, a rectangle, and a rhombus. It's all three at
Ooh, we got
once.
3.
Yeah, it's all three at once.
Fancy. I'm gonna put. Can I put?
Wait, a square is a rectangle?
Can I put pictures?
For the parallelogram, but not the rectangle and rhombus.
What's a
We can't make a rectangle.
Looks like a dime. It looks like a square.
But like slanted almost. So it's like if you took a square, slanted a little bit, that'd be a rhombus.
So almost like a diamond.
Crazy.
Yeah, kind of.
Why can't I make a rectangle?
That was really good. Oh, that was so good.
What just happened?
Okay.
You took a lot, bro.
Relationships of sides. What do you know about the sides of a square?
Only doing half.
Very good. All 4 sides are congruent.
Okay, teapot, calm down over
I'm
there.
a one hit wonder.
I only got one nervous pause.
Oh.
I just can't stop talking. And it's gotten me in trouble.
You're not the only one with that problem.
Hey, Gracie, you have that problem
Mr.
too.
Costa has that problem too, don't you?
Slopes.
You changed the subject.
Teapot, chill.
What do you know about
She sounds
slopes?
like a teapot.
Both pairs.
Mx plus b equals slope.
No. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel.
You okay, Marley?
I'm good.
Aha!
He was waiting for it.
He was holding that in. You're not gonna get me today.
Actually, I had an opportunity earlier, but I let it slide.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I mean, it's true.
Wait, Mr.
I have no good reason to lie about that.
Mr. Cossel, how are you doing today?
There's contentment and enjoyment.
She can't even say.
What's that mean?
Got him, boys.
I was like, how do I trap them? Okay, relationships of angles. What do you know about all the degrees? Angles.
That it's about 70 degrees outside right now.
It's supposed to be 81 today.
Oh, I know. I can't.
What do we know about the degrees of the angles of a square?
It's too
Really?
good.
They all equal 90 degrees.
Very good. All 4 angles are 90 degrees, and any 2 angles are supplementary. Yes, please.
It's so nice outside.
Can we please open the windows?
I know, we should have class outside.
Please. Just open them slightly.
Yeah, let me
like
just
traffic.
transport this board outside real quick.
I can transfer you outside real quick.
Oh my god.
Kirsten's
Oh
hands.
my god.
Yeah, you wanna go?
Sure.
I gained a couple pounds over.
What?
I went to a buffet, okay?
Understandable.
No, but for real.
Real life.
Can you open
Can you open
the
it,
please?
It's so nice outside. I haven't heard those birds chirp since 6 a.m. this morning.
Right?
There's no birds outside right now.
Honestly.
I would go 7.
Other one.
Nice.
Wow.
But if we do that one, it often like makes the flags fly off.
I'll catch
Oh,
it.
I was just gonna say, that would make it more
No,
patriotic.
they don't be touching.
Diagonals. Hey, there's a lot here.
Oh.
They're perpendicular and bisect each other,
So
and
perpendicular.
they're congruent.
We can
So just like a rhombus, they're perpendicular and bisect each other, and just like a rectangle, they are congruent to each other.
Really showing them perpendicular to bird.
Yeah, or you can do the symbol.
Pretty. Those are pretty birds.
Man, that chirp, you can hear them now. Yeah, they certainly sounded better last year, though.
I'm not gonna
Oh.
I'm not gonna lie. My grandma has birds, and I want to strangle them every morning.
Oh, that's
I'm a
sweet.
bird.
But
Bird is playing.
You ever just wake up on a string?
Is that you?
Well, me too.
what's a perpendicular sign? A little T.
Yeah, upside down T.
Okay.
Got you. Friendly.
Oh, Headley? Oh.
Oh.
He doesn't say anything
Oh.
else.
Really?
I know you are, but what is he?
Whoa, I'm not done. Okay.
Okay, not that point yet, Mr.
He's
Goss.
older than that. Almost
Okay.
he turned 16
We're not,
in 1 month.
elbow. Ha, psych.
Why is he in a prison?
He's older than me.
But wait, Gracie, why are you in our grade? Why are me and Paige in our grade?
Wait, how old are you?
Oh, is she older than you?
Hey, that birthday's in, I'm 15 until September.
Yeah, that's how Paige is. Oh, dang. That's crazy.
I can't get my
Well,
little
you
brother.
were the youngest one in our grade, so.
Same.
You know?
September 13th,
Not
y'all.
I already thought you were 16.
I think she's turning.
Are we done now? Oh, hi. My name is Mr.
Okay.
Paul.
Hey, so now I want you guys to get your note packet out. We're just gonna do a little bit on there. It's very short on there.
Yeah, then we're not, wait, did you just say, what should I do with these note cards right now?
You saved them.
Just put them off to the side. for now.
Ew.
I'm like nice.
Hi, nice to meet you. Yup.
Got her.
Thanks, we need a lot of it.
Is this all we're doing today? Mr. Costa?
Yeah.
Sit?
Mr. Claus, hey.
We'll do the and then the back link page.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, this
I
is
don't know if I have it.
Oh, where we going?
This literally smells like my book.
Thanks.
Where we going?
Dude has that.
Hey,
Wait,
so
wrong one. This way? Not the one that
this top left one, example one in your notes, 6.4, excuse me.
I don't know.
What is the most specific name for this quadrilateral? Raise your hand, do not blurt it out. Nathan,
Square.
a square. Why do you say square?
Because it has 90 degrees.
Okay.
Each thing, and they're all congruent, not congruent.
Are they?
Parallel.
Are both pairs of opposite sides? Both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Is this side congruent to this side?
No, but
So can it be a square?
No.
Because a square would have to have all four sides congruent. I agree. It's a rectangle.
boy, this looks
Go
like a
back to
square to
kindergarten.
me.
It's obviously right.
You're obviously a rectangle.
Dude, literally.
I know I am.
Listen up.
Like, for real.
Listen up, guys.
Got him.
Thank you.
Oh no.
Guys, listen up. Do not blurt. Thank you. This is a rectangle because it's a parallelogram. Both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, and every angle is 90 degrees. If every angle is 90 degrees, it's a parallelogram. It's either a rectangle or a square. It's not a square because not all four sides are congruent. The top and the bottom are not congruent to the left and the right. Raise your hand and do not blurt for the second one.
I got it.
Hey, Gracie. I agree. It is a parallelogram. That is the most specific name that we can know. We don't know any more about this. Because we don't know that all four sides are congruent, so it can't be a square or a rhombus. And we don't know that they're right angles, so it cannot be a rectangle. Yes.
Okay, so I was sitting in last class, and this is gonna sound really stupid, but I was doing the GeoGebra thing, and I was just like, parallelogram. It has two sets of parallel lines, and I was like, it's called a
Parallel.
parallelogram because it has two sets of parallel lines.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, going on to example 3, or the third one, excuse me. Raise your hand. Raise your hand for the most specific name for this, Julia. I agree, it's a rhombus. How did you know?
Because it's slanted.
Okay, it's slanted. What do you know about all four sides? They're congruent. All four sides are congruent. Opposite sides are parallel. And the opposite angles are congruent. What would happen if these angles were all 90 degrees though? It'd be a square, but it's not, so it's a rhombus. Hey, Gracie, what was your question?
If we spell words wrong, are you gonna count wrong on this?
Unless it's like spelled so it's a different word entirely, you know. Like if I can tell what it is, no, I'm not gonna count for spelling.
Why is it a wrong bus and not a wrong car?
What?
What? Oh my
I
gosh.
don't even know why.
That was actually
Okay.
pretty funny.
Why like going to class? Okay. Hey,
That was
so on this one, on this next one, I want you guys to think of this, the one with the one arc and the orange. Think of that almost like it just has two arcs, and the other one just has one arc. Okay. So what would raise your hand for the most specific name for this one, Sophia?
A wrong bus.
I agree, it's a rhombus again. So this time, even though we don't know that both all four sides are congruent, like we would for a rhombus, we know that the diagonals are perpendicular, and that's a big thing for our rhombus, that they're perpendicular.
Is this one a square? It's not a rectangle.
Being a rectangle is not the greatest, guys.
Russell, being a teacher, how often do you get to go to concerts on a teacher's salary?
I mean, I don't normally go to concerts anyway, but I'm
What?
planning to go
That's
to
such a
concerts.
weird question.
Who?
Who? Who?
Whom? Okay.
It's like who,
I'm
but
planning
at the
to
end of
go
the
to, I Prevail on the day to remember.
I've seen I Prevail so many
I haven't
times.
seen him yet, but I like to see like a version like EP came out.
Yeah.
On the next one, what would this one be?
Where?
Rectangle.
Rectangle?
Do we know anything about the angles?
No.
No. Do we know that they're 90 degrees?
Rhombus.
No, so it's a parallelogram. Thank you, Paige.
What?
The most specific we know. Hey, so it might look like a square, but we don't know. We don't know that all four sides are congruent. We don't know that all four angles are 90 degrees. All we know is that both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. That's the most we know. Now on this last one, raise your hand to tell me what this one would be. Nick.
Square.
It would be a square. All four sides are congruent and all four angles are 90 degrees. The angles are perpendicular as well, like they should be. Now on the back, there's a blank page and it says what at the top.
Graphic organizer.
Okay, we're gonna draw a quick graphic organizer.
Two big
That's
circles.
our graphic.
So, our broad shape for this whole thing is a four-sided polygon. What did we call any four-sided polygon?
Quadrilateral.
Quadrilateral. So I want you to write that on the top. Quadrilateral.
Quad. I had a quad this weekend.
What's a quad?
Yeah, I was playing CSGO and four guys just lined up. What do you mean?
No. So I just wrote this at the top middle. You can just write this at the top middle, and we'll be okay.
Horizontal or vertical?
Okay. I read it how it's laid out. So how's it laid out already?
Horizontal.
There you go.
I don't know the difference.
Okay. Horizontal, think the horizon.
like this.
Yeah, I always forget.
Vertical, think vertical jump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gracie, I did.
Quadrilateral. Our next most specific one we had was a parallelogram. The first one we learned.
Sorry, just had to sneeze.
So
That's
this
awesome.
is gonna connect to science. This is like a pedigree.
Oh, I hate science. Never bring it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Gossel.
Ah.
So, Kennedy, did you see that one coming?
Oh.
He's like, she didn't got it. He's like, I know it's
You
coming.
just have to say sorry.
So, our next shape after quadrilateral was parallelogram. Now, more specific than parallelogram, we had two different types. Not quite yet.
Rhombus.
And a rhombus was one of them. That was a parallelogram that had four congruent what? Sides. And we had a parallelogram with four congruent angles, which was a
Square. What the heck?
Before that.
Rectangle.
rectangle. You can kind of remember that it's the four congruent angles because it has angle in the name.
I feel like I'm making a family tree.
You are.
It's a pedigree.
But don't think of it as a family tree for this next step because it'd be really weird, okay? So a rhombus and a rectangle, we're walking down the hallway, right? Okay? We're walking down the hallway. Okay, they're holding hands. And guess what?
They made a baby.
They made a baby because
Oh,
they're
it's
holding hands,
It's
walking down the
Alabama.
hallway. And now we have a square. Roll Tide. Yes.
That's just
It's very unsafe.
Oh, really? No.
Is it?
Yes.
No, just think about it if it actually happened like this.
Dude, that would
But it
say
does.
like our whole school would be infected.
Literally does.
Whoa. What
So,
is going on?
how this works is a parallelogram.
You're telling me you've never held hands with anyone.
Not walking down the hallway of school, no, gross.
I've never held the hands of anyone.
Same here.
Mother.
You're just mad because you didn't get the chance to.
Your mother when you're crossing the street.
Got it.
You just wonder you're not, don't you?
Honestly, it's not worth it, okay? Gosh darn it.
You guys.
Not worth it.
You guys
My
crack me
hands
up.
are too
Hey,
small.
so any parallelogram, every single parallelogram is a quadrilateral. Is every quadrilateral a parallelogram?
No.
No. Okay. Every square is a parallelogram. Is every parallelogram a square?
No.
No. Every square is a rectangle. Is every rectangle a square?
No.
Okay. Is every rhombus a square? No.
No.
Is every square a rhombus?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And whenever you have a square, it's both a rhombus and a rectangle at all times.
But basically, our goal is just to get it done the most specific when we can.
Yes.
It's not all we're writing. 'Cause I
Yeah.
made